welcome everybody and say thank you all for coming out. We really appreciate it. And so, for those who don't know, my name is Jerry. I am Dana's daughter, and I wanted to share with you some things about my mom's condition that has affected my life and my family's life. I wrote my notes on my phone, so I'm not texting. In the beginning, when she had her first pain, it was a little, just, like any other thing that it's like, it comes and goes. So we weren't too worried about it. So it wasn't until it started to actually, like, not go away, like we were hoping it would, and after she went to the doctors the first time and, like, it was an actual problem, like, we started to get worried about it more than we were before. And then she started getting worse, and it was starting to be more of a big deal in our lives, and it wasn't, like, she wasn't as healthy as we thought she was and hoped she was. And then when her tremors started, it really scared me because, like, nobody wants to see their mom like that. You don't want to see anybody like that. Like, to me, tremors are like a sign of weakness, of, like, not very good health, and that really scared me, and I didn't like it. And after that, she got so bad, she had to go to the hospital, and a few days after that, we went to visit her, and seeing her like that in that weak of a stage, it just, like, made me realize how bad it really was, and that it might not get better, and I didn't know what to think. It just scared me. And then, when I had a dance competition, on the way home, my mom started to have one of her seizures, and before that I haven't seen it, like, full out, like she said happened, so I didn't necessarily know what was going on at the time, and it was really horrifying to see my mom like that, because you start to think, like, she's never going to get better, it's just like she's going to die from it, and it was really scary to see. And then she found out that, as she was looking online, like she did a lot, because she just wanted an answer. So we have the internet now, so that was an advantage. So she called me to her room and was like, listen to this. Listen, it's all the symptoms I have. It's gotta be it. We have to order this test. And so she did, of course. And it was a few weeks after that where we actually got the results. And so pretty much my whole family just went to the doctors, and, like, when we were in the doctor's office, they actually had to bring more chairs into the room so we could all sit and listen. So, and then the doctor said that the test was tested positive, and so really my mom was just like, yes! Even though it's like, wow, you got Lyme's disease, that should suck. But for my mom, it was finally an answer. There's finally something, we can put a name on it, and we can start to get better, and that's exactly what was happening. When she got her medication, she was getting so much better, and I was starting to get my life back, I was starting to get my mom back, my family was coming back, like, even my dog was happier, like, he really missed her. And right now, that I see my mom in the stage she's at, and she's not 100%, but she's so much better, it makes me sad to think that some people actually had to live with that longer than my mom did, because she's stubborn and very hard-headed. So it just makes me realize that the doctors don't really understand it, and it makes me quite upset that some people have to live like that without knowing an answer ever. And I know that my mom will change things because, again, she's stubborn. So, I mean, it's just a matter of time before the healthcare changes, and my mom is responsible for it. So, I'd like to welcome my mom up.
Jerry is incredibly shy. The fact that that just occurred was amazing, and I hadn't heard the speech before, so I was a little nervous, but she did awesome.
Yeah, I haven't either.
So my name is Dana Heisig. Basically what we're going to go over tonight is just kind of what I went through in the last, well, it's almost 2 years now. And then hopefully we'll have lots of time for questions if anybody has any, and then we'll have just some more information to pass on to you. So I have a slideshow. I've never done this before, so bear with me. Okay. Okay, sounds good. So all the donations this evening, anything over and above what it costs to rent the hall, I'm going to be sending to the Canadian Lyme Association, just so everyone is aware of that. I'm just going to ask my IT guy to come back real quick. Is there any way that I can see the notes? Is there a way the slides go up there?
No problem.
No. Yeah. I made my notes on here, see? So if I can't see those, I'll forget what I was going to say.
A little faster, IT guy.
So I'll just start. We'll let him work in the background there. In 2012, I got bronchitis very badly. I actually, for the first time in my entire adult life, missed a week of work.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Virginia and Darren, I worked with them, so yeah. So it was, I ended up having to go to the doctor. I got antibiotics. The doctor didn't look at me, didn't listen to my chest or anything, just gave me some pills. And so I assume I have bronchitis. That's what he wrote on the sheet, so I'm not sure. Because after I had that, I coughed until about the end of January, then I slowly started to get better, but I never felt it felt right. So on March 21st, I was up in Humboldt taking an insurance class, and those things are pretty exciting. So when I came home, my hip hurt. Sorry, the medication makes my mouth very, very dry, so I'm sorry. So anyways, my right hip hurt. I assumed that I had done something to myself, like everyone does. We just kind of think it's going to get better on its own, whatever. Go on about your day kind of thing. And it didn't. So by the end of April, I made an appointment, went to the GP here in town. I started off with a nurse practitioner, which was amazing. They've been amazing to me all along. They sent me for blood tests and they sent me for x-rays. So what happened when the x-rays came back was that there was the start of damage to my hip joints. However, by the time we got those results back, it had already spread to my left hip, and then it was starting to spread to my knees and my ankles. My knees would get incredibly red, and my hips, knees, and ankles would be so hot you could feel the heat coming off of them. So at that point, sure, yeah. Okay. Oh, I was going to explain my life before. before I got sick, I had taken my CAVE designation. I'd taken my last 2 courses, a week long apiece, up in Humboldt. In January and February, I was going to boot camp twice a week. Ran after the kids. I was a football mom and a dance mom, and president of Forever Friends of Hope. I did that for 13 years. I've had migraines my whole life. So, in the past I heard things like, you're a mom, what did you expect? Of course you've got headaches. Don't you like being a mom? So at that point I decided that you just stop asking after a while, right? So when I started in with the nurse practitioner here in town, and the pharmacist as well, I don't know if anybody doctors here, but the pharmacist here was quite aghast when she heard how much I was taking, how many painkillers I was taking and whatnot. So I take pills daily to manage my migraine. So that was my entire pre-existing condition, which unfortunately at some point in time, the doctors focused on, and I'm not sure why, but they did. Okay. So yeah, once the pain started, it kind of ended life as I knew it. So, not good with my left hand, that's the issue. Okay. So, this was what I assumed I'd done when I hurt myself. So, as soon as nobody's seen it, we were good to go. So yeah, I waited for about a month before I went to the doctor, and then when I finally did, it took about 10 days to come back and say that there was damage to my hip joints and my A blood counts were high. So that was the only thing that was really off. But at the time, they thought that it was rheumatoid arthritis. So it was moving a lot. And it was moving fairly quickly. It got to the point where I could no longer wear any shoes with a heel. They had to be completely flat to make it through the day. Once they told me in town here that they thought I had rheumatoid arthritis, I kind of dove in with both feet. I went to physio, I made the appointments, I found out what exercises I needed to do, and I started doing them because I was going to meet it head on and I was going to do the best I could with everything.
Did you have the RA factor in your blood?
No. However, with the damage to the joints, that's what made them think it. So I was retested for that, and it never did come back. At the time, we just kept medicating for the pain because they didn't know what was wrong, and my pain was just steadily increasing. So I started off on naproxen, went to Tridural. They got me on to a faster track to the rheumatologist because of the increasing pain and the damage. So I was actually in her office very early. I got to see the rheumatologist in May. The rheumatologist told me, and this was the part that really freaked me out, that she didn't think I had rheumatoid arthritis. She said I was in too much pain. So it was not just pain around my joints, it was pain in the muscles. And so she assumed it was something else. My lower body hurt a lot more than my upper body joints, which was proof that hauling my butt around was harder than hauling my head around. So I was sent for more blood tests and sent to a bone scan, and then the Regina General Hospital became like a second home, it seemed. So I'm trying to approach this very positively. I'm sure, pepper it with sarcasm about our healthcare system, and I can't help it. It's just going to come out. So I went for my bone scan. I do believe it was June 22nd. So they said in about 3 weeks we should have the results back. So I waited the 3 weeks and I started to phone the offices and find out where my test results were. Nobody had anything, nobody knew anything. I phoned back to the rheumatologist and she was on holidays and she wouldn't be back for about another month. So my test results had never got sent anywhere and no one would send them anywhere because I asked, not a doctor. So we didn't know the results of the bone scan until later. But once we did, they ruled out all arthritis because there was no inflammation in my body anywhere. So that test did come back negative. So the problem, one of my problems with the healthcare system was the repetition and the waste. Anyone who's doctored a lot knows it. You go to your GP, they run 8 vials of blood, and then you go to your specialist and they run the same 8 vials of blood, and the next specialist runs it, and the next. The waste is unbelievable. Once you really doctor a lot, you see that. And it's disconcerting because you see what could be going to prevention or treatment, and it isn't. So my pain just continued to spread.
So at that point, you were in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
What was your mobility like?
At that point, getting into July, it was getting a lot worse. When I first went to the appointments, it wasn't too bad. So as everything progressed, I started to have other symptoms, and this is why I want everybody to realize that the symptoms are so varied for every individual that if I had it, it doesn't mean that it's going to be the same for anybody else. The other things that I had is I would have, my eyes would blur randomly. I would just get like a floater thing in front of my vision. I would have like what I called a firework in front of or a firework pain. So it would feel like something hit me and then like it exploded. That's how my nerve endings would feel like. I would have random numbing in parts of my legs, weird parts of the legs, like my thigh would just go numb, just a patch of my thigh. So my fingers started to go numb, and again, this is where the healthcare system's awesome. It felt like there was a ball in my wrist joints, and my fingers would go numb. And I told the rheumatologist, and she said, "You have carpal tunnel." So I had another thing. They kept telling me to exercise, they kept telling me to strengthen the muscles around the joints. It was absolute torture to do anything. I couldn't do anything. I was getting to the point where I was finding it very difficult even to walk, let alone to do any exercises. Another strange symptom that I had was, usually people get like a restless leg syndrome, like that kind of jumpy feeling at night. I would get that in my arm. And one doctor in particular said, because he asked about other symptoms, and I said, well, that restless leg feeling, I get it in my arm. And he looked at me and he says, so are we talking about your arm or your leg? So it's like, hey, never mind. Yeah, exactly, that's the one, Wendy. So yeah, this would keep me awake at night because I couldn't sleep. I would be up shaking my hands and trying to move around, and I'm sure I was a joy to live with. So by this point in time, it was about July, and as my pain worsened, I was exhausted all the time. I was going back to the nurse practitioner all the time. We continued to increase my pain pills. What happened is, as I was in more and more pain, I sucked into myself. So I just turned in. Everything hurt so much all the time, I was scared someone would touch me. It would hurt, like if I scratched my own leg, it would burn for 5 minutes after, it would just hurt. So I was scared that someone would accidentally bump me. So I curled into myself, which was a very different experience for me. Yeah, my joints, my muscles ached. Not discomforting, it wasn't a discomfort. It felt like someone was holding like a blowtorch to the end of my joints, the end of my top of my hips, and my ankles ended up being the worst. So it was just a burning, constant pain. And then occasionally, for fun, it would turn into a stabbing pain that felt like something was stabbing into me and then twisting. Like my hips would just, there's not even words, it was just unbelievable. And this is about the time I started to see the neurological problems. And this is when it got really, really scary. So in July, I had to use a scooter at Walmart. And just to set the scene, at this point in time, I was still 38 years old. I got a disabled sign for my car. All of this previous was from March until July, so not quite 4 months. In July, and the pain just steadily increased more all the time. And that's when I started to stumble and fall. So I would stumble, catch myself on my own feet. I would fall into walls, tripped on nothing, tripped on the carpet, tripped on my shoes, tripped whatever, everything. I started to make spelling mistakes that I knew weren't normal for me. I started to mix up the here and here, there and there. So when I was typing, nothing was making sense anymore. I was starting to find myself slurring. And I would lose complete trains of thought. I would forget ordinary words. I would just go blank. And for me, that was incredibly frustrating. One of the worst ones was with Forever Friends. For 13 years, we dealt with applicants, and we dealt with their applications. And one day, I was trying to say something about an application, and I could not find the word. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea where it was. It was gone, and it was incredibly frustrating. It just feels like you're losing complete control of your life. And then everybody forgets, don't worry about it. Oh, wait till you're older, don't worry about it. But yeah, I worried. So then this, hopefully this will work. Okay, so anyways, eventually it should start. This is what started to happen, is my fingers started to twitch. It started with the middle finger of my left hand. It spread through my other fingers, so I'll just relax my hand. That's how it starts. That's how it started. So I went to the doctor with that, and the doctor here in town was quite upset by it, because, it's not supposed to happen that way. So, anyways, we'll just skip that. I've never made a PowerPoint before, so this is completely new to me, so it worked at home, but that doesn't mean anything. So they would just give me painkillers. Naproxen, Tridural, morphine, Tramadol, Lyrica. I was offered Oxycontin almost every time I went to the doctor from about September on. I wouldn't take it because every show I've ever watched where there's a drug addict, it all starts with I hurt my back and I got Oxycontin. So I was scared of ending up that way. Some of the side effects were very, very difficult. The side effects I didn't feel mitigated a lot of what would happen, Oh, no, well, whatever, don't worry about it. Just go buy some Metamucil, you'll be fine. Well, it wasn't like that, that wasn't enough. So I did not picture this before I was 40, I have to tell you. So in July, I decided to buy a cane. And this is kind of a funny story. Gwen is here. She's one of my coworkers. And so I came out. I'd fallen into the grocery carts at Bigway, and I had fallen into a wall of work. And I said, well, girls, I think I better go buy a cane. Who wants to come with me? And Gwen says, buy a cane? I've got one in the back of my car. Who has that? Who does that? So anyways, I had a cane. I don't know what else she has in the back of her car, but she's fairly well equipped.
You don't want to know.
Yeah. Exactly. Any bodies back there, Randy?
Look.
In August, I started giving in. Jerry's right, I'm incredibly stubborn. As I was getting sicker, the pain was getting worse, my exhaustion was getting unbelievable. I'd get to work at 8 o'clock in the morning, I would go home for lunch, I'd walk in the house, I wouldn't eat, I'd go straight to bed, I'd lay down, and that fast I'd be asleep. I'd set my alarm, wake up 2 or 3 hours later, go back to work out the rest of my day. So in August, I decided to take some time off because I thought, if I just have a week off, I'll get lots of rest, that'll be it, I'll be good. But a week went to 2 weeks, and I kept telling the doctors over and over, I can feel it getting worse under the pills. I can feel it getting worse. And they said, we don't know what you're talking about. So apparently that's not a medical term, but that's how I was describing it. So in the beginning of August, my hand twitch was getting worse, and as I was stumbling, I went to the hospital here in town. They decided to keep me overnight and to fast track me into the neurologist the next morning at the general. which fast track means 4:30 in the afternoon the next day. They suspected MS very strongly. He did tell me that usually MS doesn't have any pain associated with it. I'm sure some people with MS might argue with that, but that's what he told me. So, in the hospital at that point in time, he told me that I could stay there. He said, you can stay here if you want, I can admit you. But you just have to wait to get an MRI. So if you want, I'll get you an emergency MRI, 2 to 7 days, you'll have your MRI, no problem. So I said, okay, and went home, because I didn't know. If I knew then what I knew now, I would have stayed. 2 to 7 days meant 3 weeks. I got my first MRI. The doctor, when he booked it, told me that 2 days after I had the MRI, I was to phone his office, go in, and he would give me the results. He said, we get them back right away, it's quick, no problem. So I said, okay, I can do that. I tried, for the very most part, to be easy to deal with, because I don't think anybody helps you if you're mean to them. So I did try to be fair and tried to be honest and stuff, but looking back, I wish I would have been firmer, but hindsight's 20/20, right? So he told me to call his office after I had the MRI, and the results would be back. He'd just see me right 3 days later, and that was fantastic, and that's what I did. And his receptionist said, well, that is simply not possible. And so that was the 3rd of September. She told me that I could get in on September 28th, and that would mean like 4 weeks till I got my results. At this point in time, my feet had began twitching, so they would just hop like that. One foot would just hop. And so I knew it was spreading, I knew it was getting worse. So we made the decision to go to the general. At this point in time, I was also having bladder issues. I was having a lot of trouble going to the bathroom, which I know for some people with Lyme it's the other way. So with me it was a very difficult thing. There was a lot of self-talk involved, so I was getting very nervous about that. So when I finally decided to go in, because I decided I was not waiting a month for those test results. So I went into the general. 3 days later, we waited however long, it was hours. I think we got there at about 9 and we didn't get seen till probably 10 at night. So at that point they decided that it was something going on, and so they decided to do something. And I knew that I was going to be in a wheelchair before I was 40 if I didn't do something. And I decided that even though I was sick for 5 months, in my world, this was an emergency. This was my emergency. So I knew, and the pros and cons. I'm sure there's a lot of people that say it's not an emergency, you're not bleeding, you don't have broken bones, you could still walk, what's your problem? And I had lots of upcoming appointments, nothing was pressing, but my trembling was turning into convulsions. I could hardly stand for any more than a few minutes. I was very easily confused. And the oddest thing of it all is I started to have trouble differentiating between reality and a dream. I would wake up in the morning and I would not be able to trust my memory anymore. I was second guessing things that happened in my childhood. I was second guessing things that happened 5 years ago. It was like someone was rewriting a script in my head. So in my world, it was an emergency. And the other thing, I had no bladder sensation at all. So I couldn't tell if I had to go to the bathroom. So if I would forget, eventually hours would go by and my stomach would hurt, and then I'd be like, oh wait, yeah, that's what I gotta do. So all sensation was gone. So not good.
I'm sorry, is that the bladder sensation, is that part of the neurological?
Yes.
That is?
Yeah.
Okay.
They didn't want to admit that though, which brings me to the hospital. What I've now learned is that they put you in the hospital if they want to kill you. So, can't speak for anybody else, but that is what they tried to do to me. We got admitted, finally. It was 11:30 on a Thursday. The trouble with the urination was enough to convince me that I did need help. Help isn't quite what I got, but they thought they'd try. I could hear the neurologist when he got my MRI results outside of the room the next morning, and he said his words were, "Really? It's not MS?" Huh. So when they're already that sure, that's a pretty scary thing to hear. And so they did just keep looking. I ended up with 3 MRIs and a spinal tap. So in the next 12 hours from when I was admitted, they took me off my migraine pills. My migraines were well controlled. They gave me a spinal tap. The second doctor came in, gave me a very physical examination. I was lifting my legs, I was lifting my arms, I was sitting up and laying down within half an hour of the spinal tap. And then they gave me Celebrex, which at the time I didn't know was an arthritis pill. I didn't have arthritis. I'd had a bone scan. We all knew it wasn't arthritis. Why would you give me an arthritis pill? However, what do I know, right? So they took me off all my migraine pills because that pill does have a side effect that it can cause the trouble with the bladder. So that was, they said, nope, it's nothing, it's just that pill, get off of it, no problem. So I asked him, I said, you're gonna have to give me something else, I will have a headache before nighttime. And he said, yeah, and left and then didn't. The only painkillers they left me at the hospital were Tylenol and Advil. I was using the pills that I got here in town, Maxalt, in the hospital on my own to take to work with the headaches. I was taking one every 12 hours. And then on top of the Tylenol and Advil that they were giving me. So that was then Friday, it was when they took me off of all of that. By Friday at about 10 o'clock I had a wicked migraine. The Celebrex made me horribly, horribly sick. So by Saturday at about noon, they'd given me the injection into my the Celebrex. They had set up an IV. They were going to start giving me Gravol. So first they gave me Gravol orally, and it was only the second Celebrex I took. This is the story that Jerry was talking about. I was laying in my bed and I said, I don't feel very good. And I said, I think I'm going to be sick. And she gave me one of those little containers, you know, the awesome ones that don't hold anything. So I just started throwing up. I couldn't do anything. I was just throwing up. I threw up all over myself. In order to change me so that I could shower, that point already I couldn't stand. I was shaking. I was so weak that Derek had to undress me, shower me, make me smell a whole lot better. And I can't imagine how tough that was on Jerry. So by Saturday night, they decided that maybe I needed some morphine. So I was to get 5 milligrams of morphine, which they cut in half because they didn't want me to have it all at once. So about an hour, I knew it wasn't, so I called for more. And at that point, they didn't know if it was the Celebrex or if it was the spinal tap that went bad. So they didn't really want to do anything one way or the other until they knew. By Sunday night, though, I knew what was causing it. There was no way I was doing that to myself again. Monday morning, I said, I'm not taking it again and you can't make me. And it was, well, the doctor wants. And I said, I don't care. I'm not doing it. And so when I was finally on the way out of the hospital, I was getting my strength back a little bit. So they sent me out Tuesday. I was discharged. They gave me a different prescription for my migraine pills at a third of the dose that I was usually taking. I remember pretty much none of September. For the first about 3 weeks, I couldn't even get out of bed. I think I had a doctor's appointment in that time, and Derek almost had to carry me back into the house because I would almost pass out. And in that entire time, I had a migraine the entire time. So by the Tuesday that I left, I was down 20 pounds, which didn't stay off, by the way. I managed to find it again, so it was all right. Yeah, I couldn't change my own clothes, I couldn't put my own socks on, I couldn't put my own shoes on. If I bent over, I would fall over. They came back with my MRI. There was a spot in my brain that they wanted to check again, so that led to 2 more MRIs. I started researching my drugs, and this was the start of what Jerry was talking about. I was researching my pills, I started looking at doses. My next appointment was supposed to be on September 28th, so I thought, okay, I'll just wait till then. I guess I can go back in and get the right pills. And the receptionist, with the leastest, she was just a joy, called to inform me that my September appointment was a waste of the doctor's time because he had just seen me and rescheduled it for 2 weeks after that. So I'm not condoning what I did. Don't do it and say I told you to, because I don't think my liability will hold up. So I decided to double the migraine medication on my own. That's what I did. It started helping, like it started to knock some of the edge off. My headaches were not as bad. And I tried to go up another step with them, but it just wasn't working for me. And this is as an aside, there's a lot going on. So I don't know if everybody's probably watched The Big Bang Theory, when Sheldon and his says, "I'm not crazy, my mother had me tested." When the doctors can't find anything wrong with you, they assume that you're crazy. So they sent me to a psychiatrist. And so now I told people that, because Virginia drove me that day because I couldn't drive, so I said, "I'm not crazy, Virginia had me tested." So they were looking for something called conversion, which is apparently strong in a lot of cultures where women have no voice and no say.
Oh, brother.
We're saying. So
Honestly,
what
I
happens
I
is,
can't sit through this.
sorry, it gets better.
I can't even hear it.
So what conversion is women in severely repressed cultures will sometimes have something horribly happen to them, like a sexual assault or something like that. But because they can't do anything with that information, and they can't get any help, there's no one there to help them, sometimes what will happen in their body is their physical body will shut down because their mental just can't handle it all. Now, they did say that they've never seen a case of this in Western culture, but, got to try it anyways, right? So, however, he did say that I was frustrated and angry with the medical system, and he didn't think I was crazy, so that was good.
What was the spot that they found?
Oh, actually, it was just something they figured I was born with.
Oh.
Yeah, so the way it went was I had an MRI on my brain and my neck, and then on my brain again, and then they decided to look on my spine. Why they didn't do it all at once? Again, somebody smarter than me can figure that out, because I don't have a clue. When we finally got back to the neurologist again, this is where my support system became incredibly important. There are not words for how weak you are and how mentally weak you get when everything is just gone. The doctor wanted to put me on Botox. He wanted to control my migraines. He just kept talking about controlling my migraines, controlling my migraines. I didn't think I was there for that, but apparently I was. So I was not interested in Botox at that time. I knew it was more needles, right? I couldn't stand the thought of hurting anymore. And then he looked at me and he said, "Well, what do you want? What do you want me to do?" And I just started crying. I said, I just was bawling. And so luckily, Derek looked him in the eye and he said, "I know what I want her to do. You're going to put her back on the nortriptyline. We're going to get her headaches under control, and then we're going to figure out what else is wrong with her." But if I would have been alone, that would never have come. I wouldn't have known what to say. He also said to me, I said I was still having trouble with my bladder, and he says, "Well, what do you mean?" And I said, "I'm still having problems with my bladder." And he said, "Well, they said in the hospital that you were fine." I'm like, I don't know how anyone would know that. Nobody asked, and I'm not fine. So even though I had been off the pills for 6 weeks, it still didn't fix the problem, and he still didn't want to put me back on the pills. So, lovely, lovely, lovely. And again, my seizures started to increase at this time. I was referred to another neurologist in Saskatoon. I had an EEG first, and that's the one where they hook up your brain to check your brain activities. There was some, don't worry, it was fine. The best thing that could have happened did, while I was hooked up, I had one of my seizures. I called them episodes for a while, but so I was flopping all over the bed there, and so the best thing that came out of that is they knew that the seizures didn't come from my brain. So it was either something to do with my nerves, something wasn't working along the way. Epilepsy, it triggers something in your brain, mine weren't. So that was good, but it just made the problem even more difficult, right? Because then you have something that's now worse. They can see it's worse, but they don't know what to do with that information. The second opinion in Saskatoon was honestly one of the worst experiences in my life. Anytime, this could be just me again, take this with a grain of salt, it's just my opinion. Anytime they call a doctor a genius, I think it's because he's a real prick and nobody wants to say it. That's what I think. So, I got sent to a genius. It was, I don't know if anybody's had an EMG in here, and I don't want to scare anybody because it's not cool. The rheumatologist wouldn't make any diagnosis and wouldn't give me any more treatment, just the painkillers, until I had something done with the neurologist. Neurologist didn't want to say anything until he had something from the rheumatologist. So they just kept increasing my dosage, and I was kind of left on my own. In December, early December, the rheumatologist gave me Lyrica. So at this point in time, I was already on 300 milligrams of tramadol, painkiller. Okay, I'm going too fast, Darren says. Or I'm yelling. Am I yelling? Okay. I get really angry. So I started the Lyrica, and I did find a lot of relief from that. So about every 6 weeks, we just upped my dose. In the middle of December is where I had the EMG. So the EEG, they stick the little tabs all over your head. You're good to go, it doesn't hurt at all. The EMG, first, they take electrodes and they stick them on your muscles, and pretty major muscles, and then they give you a shock of electricity. So your muscle contracts and then lets go. And it's painful, and what they're doing is testing how long it takes for that sensation to get from that point in your nerve to your brain and back. And then when you think that part's over, then the technician leaves and the doctor comes in and sinks big needles in your back instead. And then they twack them to see how long it takes that sensation to go to your brain and back down again. Very, very painful, very invasive, very upsetting. So he had never reviewed my file. He was looking through it while he was asking me questions. And So as I was finishing, he said, well, there's nothing wrong with you, everything's fine. I said, then what is wrong with me? And I started sobbing, because at that point, you just want to know something, right? He said, I'll refer you to a bladder doctor, because obviously something's up there, and I'll refer you to a sleep doctor if you say you're not sleeping. And I said, something is wrong with my whole body, head to toe. I said, it is not my bladder, it is not my sleep, it is not carpal tunnel, it is all of me. Derek started to ask him a question, and he got up and walked out of the room. Would not answer any more questions, walked away. And if I was queen of the world, I would have fired him right then and there. But I'm not. Okay, so this is where I step on my soapbox, and I'm terribly apologetic. The only changes that we'll ever make and stick in the healthcare system to things like morale is when they stop letting doctors be asses to everyone around them.
Praise God, hallelujah, I am there with the sister. All men in Saskatchewan particularly.
There you go. There is absolutely no way you can fix morale in an organization when someone is allowed to come in and belittle and treat someone like they're nothing in front of them. They are nothing but a problem. I am the reason they're getting paid, but I am nothing. And I absolutely don't think it should happen, and until it stops and the doctors get treated like everybody else, that if you're not good at what you do, get out, do something else. Okay, so. Yeah, that's the soapbox. Okay, so after the EMG, this was one that really got fun. My, again, my seizures were steadily increasing all the time. That was on December 18th. I phoned the rheumatologist at the beginning of January and I said I'd like to make an appointment. I was supposed to come back in 3 months. She said I couldn't make the appointment until my EMG results came back. I phoned the neurologist and I said I'd like to make my appointment. I was supposed to make one after this test. He said there's no point in making it until your test results come back. My seizures continued to get worse. The jerking motions continued. I was starting to pull from my shoulders. So I would pull in from my shoulders like this, in from my shoulders, and then my knees would pull up. And then occasionally they'd go across, my knees would come across, and then my hands would twitch, my face would contort, the whole 9 yards. So it was getting decidedly scarier. However, I called Saskatoon at that point. I called the doctor's office and said, my doctors don't have the results, can you send them? And so they said, okay, well, you know, it was the holidays, so it's going to take longer. It's probably going to be another 3 weeks. So I said, okay, circled it on the calendar. 3 weeks later, nobody knew anything. So then I phoned hospital, phoned records, found out that the doctor had to request them or else I had to pay for them. Very long, drawn out. The rheumatologist finally did decide to see me because so much time had passed. And at this point in time, I was again just increasing my pills as I needed them. My appointment with the neurologist fell on February 28th. So again, rheumatologist didn't want to diagnose me. She threw the word fibromyalgia around at that point. That's probably what you have. You don't have to worry about it. That's the pain. I don't know what's going on with your neurological system, but that's probably what it is. So this is where I have some advice. Take charge of your situation. You have every right to know every test result that you have and to know everything you were tested for. They tested me for things that I had no idea, just so you know I don't have AIDS or syphilis. However, I wasn't worried about those two, but apparently I could be. So I never knew at any point exactly what I'd been tested for, so I didn't know what was ruled out and what wasn't. What they would say to me is, they ruled lots of stuff out with this, but nobody ever said what it was. People get missed so often because we're not people, we're a number. Follow up. We are their customers. We have every right to demand that we get that service that we need. Because they're rude, we back off too often and we shouldn't. Just, that's what I know now. I didn't know that then. But now, I'm way meaner. So I was,
When you're writing things down, get copies of your results also.
Mhm.
And that's your right, that's your paper.
Perfect,
And
yeah.
people don't know that, they think they can't do it.
Yeah, because a lot of times they charge you to take them out of the office, right? So people think that they don't have that ability. But again, here in town, when I did ask for my results, it was fantastic, I got them. But yeah,
Did you get the rash?
no, I do
Yeah.
not.
Yeah, neither did
Yeah.
my friend's sister. She got the rash,
Mhm.
and she went to the doctor and, you know, said, "Don't worry about it,"
Mhm.
or whatever.
Yeah, only about 30% of the people get the rash.
Yeah.
So when I was on CTV the other morning there, and when I was done, they put a thing up on the screen that said 70 to, according to Health Canada, 70 to 80% of people get the rash. I didn't see that before I left, so I would have told them they were wrong on that, but I didn't get that to that point. So on February 28th, the neurologist told me I probably had something called PKD. It's a very long word, don't remember what it was, but it was a childhood seizure disorder. Typically children grow out of it by the time they're 20. I was pushing 40 pretty hard. I was pretty sure I didn't have a childhood disorder, you know. So he said there is no test for PKD. This is kind of ironic, actually. There's no test for PKD. You take these seizure pills. If it stops your seizures, you have PKD. Fantastic. At least we have something. And so then we walked away from that thinking I had PKD and fibromyalgia. Okay, I can deal with that, right? So at that point in time, he talked me into Botox. I gave in. It wasn't cool. My seizures were getting fairly immobilizing. I couldn't walk, couldn't talk. I'd stopped talking because I was starting to get very concerned I would bite my tongue. It never went to the grand mal stage, like I never lost control of my bladder or anything, but it was going to progress to that point. How do I show this seizure monitor? I'm just going to show you what it looked like. It's not pretty. Anyone that knows me, like my mom, is probably going to cry. So I have no Kleenexes, you're all on your own. When they started, they were very minor. And this one was in January. At this point in time, just to set it up for you, I know Blue Cross has been getting a lot of bad press lately, and they were very good to me, actually. But they did try what they always try, so they phoned me in January and said, since I didn't have anything, I could go back to work. And they wanted me to start working the next week. And I said, I can't see how I can work, you know? So this was what my seizures were. Yeah, so I'm just kind of narrating because, you know, this is also a really good look for me, just so everyone's aware. This is the glory that I wake up with in the morning.
That's why she turned it sideways.
Yeah. So it'll distract.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yes, at this point in time, they were telling me I could go back to work. It'll probably be hard to hear, but during the seizure, I was looking at my husband as he was filming me, and I was in full seizure mode, and I said, hey, you want to buy some insurance? Because you laugh or you cry, that's all you've got, right? And so it was quite the experience, and you can't tell people that, and you can't show them that over the telephone. Go ahead, yeah. So I won't make you watch all 11 minutes of it because it doesn't get any better than this. It just gets worse. So, but they were like this every 2 days at least. I could feel them coming, so I did have a little bit of control enough to be able to get out of the room, to get out of where I was. At this point, I was no longer driving. They just continued and progressed. Eventually, my knees would start to pull up so that you couldn't have anything on my lap anymore. Yeah, there, he's talking about me going back to work. There you go.
Looks like a pretty easy job at Virginia's.
Yeah, it must be.
I'm the easy one, Darren's horrible.
So at this point, they said, okay, well, we'll continue your disability insurance, but we're sending someone out to do a house survey or a house test. The good thing was, and I use good in an odd term, the good thing was the woman said she didn't think she'd ever seen anybody as sick as me. So that makes you feel awesome. By the end, my eyes would roll back in my head. For the beginning of them, I could still see. I could still see what was going on. By the end, all I would see is like a lime green, like a green color would come across my eyes. The doctor said, well, you try walking. Sometimes you can walk a seizure off. And we went, okay. So you can't. I don't know why they said that, but...
Were seizures from your migraines that you weren't being medicated for?
No, at this point in time, I was back on my medication.
Okay.
The seizures were just it was just the tremble turned into a convulsion, which turned into a seizure, which turned into a 45-minute long eyes roll back in my head, hands banging against the windows, one I had in the car and that Jerry was talking about, and yeah, Derek had to hold my arms down so I wouldn't break the window.
Couldn't you just go back to the psychiatrist?
I should have, yeah.
You should've.
I should have
That
went
would've
there
fixed
with the seizure and said, now am I crazy? Yeah, so the good thing is like I said, they did decide to give me some more insurance. They also called Virginia, and Virginia told them that she was absolutely not allowing me back to work. Under no circumstances was I welcome there, so that helped as well.
That sounds pretty harsh, but
It does, but it was true. She could see how sick I was. She knew I wasn't able to work. But I understand that sometimes people can work, they choose not to. I understand where it comes from. It's just when it is true, it's really hard to take. And so this is where kind of, the movie that's out right now, The Horrible, Rotten, Awful, Bad Luck Day or whatever, this is the month that was my bad luck day. On February 28th, I started taking the neurologist's anti-seizure pills. I thought, fantastic. Within 3 or 4 days, I realized that I hadn't had a seizure. Excellent, this is great. So I actually went a couple of weeks, no seizures. A little bit of tremble, no seizures, I was good. Went back to his office, and quite happy, sat down to get my Botox, had my diagnosis, I showed him my hand, I was steady, he was happy, I was happy, we're getting somewhere finally, right? And then 2 weeks later, when I got the Botox on March 11th, went to the hospital, got the Botox, lovely stuff. Next morning I woke up with an absolutely horrific case of hives. This is my leg, don't get scared, it's not that bad. I looked like this from head to toe, in my scalp, bottoms of my feet, everything. At this point in time, I'd also developed some sort of a rash on my hands and my legs. Big circles of what looked to be like a psoriasis type thing. They're actually so bad on my legs that they scarred. I had hives in my psoriasis, which is like the biggest kick in the butt ever. It just doesn't get worse than that, right? I phoned the doctor. His receptionist told me to take some Benadryl. And he phoned me back himself 5 minutes later and said, this has never happened before, we don't know what's wrong, this is what you have to do. I had to stop taking the seizure pills, wait 2 weeks, and then start taking the seizure pills and see what happened. So, I had hives, then I had no hives, and then I got hives again. 10 o'clock in the morning I took the pill, 5 o'clock in the afternoon I was covered in hives. So, this day was really low. It was a very, very bad day. I would say probably one of the worst of my whole life and my whole ordeal. Because I knew the tentative diagnosis that they were working with was a last resort. It was very disillusioning at that point. But this did bring me, oddly enough, closer to my solution. During all of this, I blogged. I don't know, some of you maybe followed along, but so what I had done on that day was I'd almost lost my mind. The psychiatrist probably would have had something to say at this point. I wrote a blog, I wrote a timeline of everything that had happened in the last year of my life, days, the events, the everything, every symptom, everything I could think of. I have a friend in Edmonton who read my blog and then shared it. And one of her friends told to my friend, give her the Canadian Lyme Association website address. Just tell her to go on, just tell her. She had worked in a Lyme-friendly clinic. She said, just try it. So that's what I did. So had I not posted that blog, who knows what would have happened. So the website definitely changed my life. The website that's here was the link to the symptom page. So I was reading the symptoms. My husband was away he worked sporadically when he could, when I was good enough that he could leave me. So I was going down the list of symptoms and I was just checking them off, bladder problems, vision problems, pain, joint, going down the list. And so I called my husband, told him. He is incredibly supportive. He said, get the kit, what's $500? So I did, and I ordered it. It was kind of a jump of faith at that point. Now the kit came from California. It came 2 weeks later in the mail, so I phoned the IGenics lab. I requested a test kit. Those were the ones that we had here at the back tonight. They sent it to me about 2 weeks later. And I'll just tell you the steps in case you want to get yours filled
Dana,
out.
sorry,
Yep.
can I interrupt you for
Yep.
a sec? I can't remember. Did you know at that point that you had already been tested here for Lyme?
Yes. I had been tested once. I requested a second one in the fall, and the neurologist did for sure one, possibly two. We haven't been able to nail it down. And then I've had another one since. So negative here all 3 times.
All times
Test
negative.
here, tests for 1 strain. There are 4 strains. That's a whole nother story. So I took the kit, I took everything in it, my papers and everything. I took them to the nurse practitioner here in town. I fully believe had I been at a doctor, it would have ended very differently. So she filled out the requisition for me. I took that requisition to the city to get my blood drawn. Since then, I've heard that there's been some changes. I just was able to walk in, get my blood drawn, and walk out. Now apparently you have to phone the labs and make an appointment. So I got my blood drawn. It cost $35.
Sorry.
Hmm?
Now, did you say it's been changed because of the Lyme disease?
No,
or-
I think it maybe was happening enough that they just decided to change it.
Okay.
Yeah. So the kit has to be done either Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday because it has to go out and they have to get it before the weekend. I went in on a Wednesday. When I had my blood drawn, they have to spin it. So it took about 15 minutes, cost $35. Nothing special, 2 vials of blood, little vials, no big deal. We went right to the airport from there. We went into the FedEx building. I was kind of concerned. I didn't realize how easy it was to ship human parts around on an airplane, but you can do it. It's pretty easy. So it cost $75. We got a tracking number with it. I woke up the next morning, tracked it. By 9:30 in the morning, my blood was in California and it had been signed for by the receptionist at the IGenics labs. So that's when the waiting kind of got really tough because at that point, you know, you're so close. You want to know for sure. The test itself is $475 Canadian, or American, I mean, sorry. So at the time, it was about $525 to get it done. I waited until I watched that clear my account because it came off my credit card. So when I seen it come off the account, then I phoned because I figured that we would be getting results soon. I would definitely advise you to phone. Most of the ones that I've heard from since have had to phone and follow up on the results. Sometimes they say they mail them, sometimes I don't know where it goes, but just phone. And they fax them right out. So we went to the doctor the next morning. Indian Head is fantastic. They phoned me in the afternoon. They said, we have your results. Come in at first thing in the morning and we'll talk to you then. Fantastic. We left there. We got to the doctor's office, nurse practitioner. She says, okay, well, you've got a positive result here. Can you start antibiotics tomorrow morning? We'll start them by IV. We'll get you on some antibiotics. Good to go. I went home elated. This was it. We were finally getting somewhere, right? Then the doctor's office phoned me back and said that the doctor wouldn't sign off on the antibiotics because nurse practitioners can't prescribe IV antibiotics without a doctor's signature, and he refused to sign. So he wanted me to go to an infectious disease doctor, and it's a good thing I wasn't terribly infectious because the appointment was in 5 weeks. However, this is where miserable and stubborn comes in again. Honestly, of my adult life, that is hands down the worst day. That was the lowest day. Throughout all of it, I tried to maintain a happy outlook, a positive outlook for the most part. But there were some really low days. And I don't think people spend enough time talking about that with chronic illness as well. It doesn't matter what you have. The whole, just grin and bear it, oh, be happy, oh, you know, oh, you just have to have a good attitude. Sometimes it sucks. Some days are hard. and we don't feel that we can allow ourselves those tough days, and we should. So yeah, that was a very, very low day. However, my family kicked in again at this point. A couple of my aunts had a phone meeting. They knew a lot more about stuff than I did. They then called me to tell me the name of the clinic in Calgary that treated Lyme. And so I phoned and made an appointment for the next Monday. That was Friday. By Monday, I had the appointment at the Lyme Clinic in Calgary. First one was a phone call. They tell you how it's going to work, how the billing works, how the setup works. They talk to you to make sure that you want to go ahead with this. And so that was fantastic. So I decided I did. I phoned back. I got an appointment for the next Monday. So just imagine, we're sitting here waiting for 5 weeks to see an infectious disease doctor. I could get into a doctor in Calgary in a week for an hour-and-a-half long appointment. So I went. Dr. Taylor is the one whose name is on the clinic. Dr. Hernandez is the one that I was working with. And I have absolutely no doubt that they saved my life. I know I was going to die. And I was going to die of something probably seizure related, and they were going to say it was seizure related, and I didn't have anything else to worry about. This is just how I know it was going to go. So my appointment was for 10 o'clock the next morning. So my husband made me a bed in the back of his truck, like in the cab. I wasn't that miserable. I was still staying inside.
Wasn't talking about that.
Dark over you.
Yeah, exactly. It's all good. So I didn't realize how pale I looked through all of it. I didn't realize how I looked until I looked back now at the pictures, but it was pretty bad. So the appointment was for 10 o'clock. This was the coolest thing. Got there, sat down. It was about 3 minutes after 10. The doctor came out to get us, and she said, "I am so sorry, I'm late. There was a huge accident. I was in a traffic jam. I'm so sorry." When the hell was the last time any doctor apologized to somebody for being late here? So that was just the start of it. Hey, you all of a sudden start to realize that you're in good hands, right? So by noon, I had a clinical diagnosis. I had the blood work, so I had the diagnosis with the blood tests. And I had antibiotics were on their way. So because there is a loophole in the system, naturopaths in Alberta can prescribe antibiotics, some of them, not all of them, but some of them can. So I get, my prescription comes from the clinic in Calgary. I had to go there once. Everything else was a phone-in treatment. She just checked in, made sure everything was going okay. She then faxes my prescription to a pharmacy in BC, because Dr. Taylor's license is technically held in BC. So my pills come from BC to my post office box. I don't even have to sign for them. How cool is that? This was the first pill day. It was May 16th. We were very excited at the office. I picked up my pills and I was able to take the first one, so it was awesome. Within 2 weeks, I could walk short distances without my cane. My son had gone to Peru. He came back, and I was able to walk into the airport and get him without the cane. About 2 weeks after that, I started to cut myself down on my seizure medication. Within about a month, 6 weeks, I was off my seizure medication. At that point, I started to slowly start weaning off of the pain medication. So, I mean, we're in July at this point. So, that's a bad look for me. And since then, I have steadily gotten stronger. It was probably within the first week, my bladder problems went away. I was good to go. Still taking the prescription that he told me was causing it. Whatever, not bitter, hardly at all. And since then, I've got better all the time. I've been on 3 different antibiotics, and Lyme is difficult to treat because it has different, defenses. So at one point in time, when the Lyme is just having a party in my body like it was, when I first took the first antibiotics, I had a massive kill-off. I was really quite ill for a few days. So once my body killed all of the Lyme it could with that type of antibiotic, what the Lyme does then is it starts to panic and it rolls into a ball, and the antibiotics can't kill it. So I had to, the naturopath did this all in stages. So then I had to take another antibiotic that would cause it to open so that it could be killed again. Then we switched my antibiotic so we could come at it from a different direction. And after about 2 months, I guess, we changed that again. Now we're at the stage where, in order to really protect itself, the Lyme bacteria itself rolls up and it emits, they call it a biofilm. So this is basically what makes it impenetrable. So now I'm on something else that, it's an enzyme that breaks down that biofilm, so it will allow more of a kill off. So, and it's still changing. I've got at least 4 more months of antibiotics. She has me on a fistful of pills, I'm not gonna lie. I'm taking fish oil, I'm taking vitamin B, vitamin D. The last thing they sent me, it's horrible. It's a botanical, they make it for your symptoms, and it tastes horrendous. So it better work because it's awful. So there has been changes in my treatment along the way. But I mean, I was just coming ahead in leaps and bounds, so I'm still quite willing to do whatever they say. Again, I want everyone to go away with tonight the fact that we cannot allow ourselves to be bullied by the system. Our healthcare system is built for crisis. You break an arm, you're good to go. Go in there, they'll set it, they'll fix you up, no bill comes in the mail, we're lucky, right? However, anytime there's chronic illness is where our system starts to fall apart. Mental illness, again, the system just does not have a clue how to cope. We're talking so much about fixing problems, no one ever talks about prevention. And what is it, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure? But we don't talk about that. Except they do tell you to exercise, because that fixes everything. So while I was going through all of this, they told me I just needed to exercise more. And I said, I was taking boot camp 2 nights a week when I got this. What the hell's exercise gonna do, right? No, apparently it was just the ticket. And so, and we need to push. And I know I've heard this before from other people that have been through the system, but you don't really realize how important it is to just keep at it, don't back down, and trust yourself in your heart, in your mind, when they're right, and when they're full of shit, and we know it. And they talk us out of trusting ourselves, and that is not okay. I'm sorry, I'm swearing. Nobody's got a beeper for me. The Globe and Mail published something. Because people are talking a lot more about Lyme. They say most Canadians think of Lyme as a disease, rare illness that affects hikers bitten by ticks in the deep woods. You go on antibiotics, you get the bullseye, go on antibiotics, you're good to go, right? That ain't true. It's not right. And this is how it isn't rare. And the time I was diagnosed, my father-in-law had what they thought was a stroke. Convinced it was a stroke. They did, I think it was 5 CT scans actually in a couple of weeks period because they were so sure it was a stroke. Not a stroke. They said it must be a TIA. Can't find anything like that either. So they sent him to physio. So if his heart rate got over 115, his leg would go numb. So there was a direct correlation there. However, he was sleeping a lot more, and the neurological symptoms were very strange for him. He could, at physio, they said, throw a ball against the wall, catch it. You could throw the ball against the wall, catch the ball, no problem. They said, okay, now watch the ball. So while watching his hand, he tried to throw it, couldn't let go of it, followed through, and walked backwards. So obviously, something wasn't connecting, right? He and I both, one symptom that we actually did kind of share was if I looked down, or if he looked down too, we'd head left. Like I was very hard to keep up with because I was just gone the other way and I couldn't stop it. It was just what happened. And he would do the same thing. If the physio told him to start walking, and stop when I tell you. He could walk, they'd say stop, and it would take him 2 or 3 steps to stop. He said, well, I can stop when I want to stop. I just can't stop when they want me to stop. So, not a big deal, right? So because it was the same, there was similar situations where he and I were both going through some of the same stuff. We asked him as well to just do the Lyme kit. Again, it's $500, you know. It came back positive. So that puts him in Saskatoon, where he lives, us here. That's troubling enough in itself. My cousin's little girl was down in Cyprus this summer. She got bit, came up with the perfect bullseye rash on her arm. And they took her to the hospital to emergency. The pediatrician that was there was going to give her antibiotics because he thought it might look like something. But the infectious disease guy was wandering around. So he said, come on in and have a look at this, see what you think. Infectious disease looked at it and said, it's not Lyme, we don't have Lyme here. It's nothing, she probably got bit by something else. Sent her home. I think it was about a week later when the other one showed up. So it was on the other arm, right? Yeah, so the other one showed up, and Trail sent me a picture, and I passed on the Provital Clinic. They took her to the Provital Clinic, got her on antibiotics, and she's now doing quite well.
Yeah, it just really,
It got really quick.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
At the start, very quick.
She was getting symptoms though, bad symptoms.
Yeah,
And she
exactly.
wasn't 2 yet when she got it. She was just
Yeah.
coming to.
But if
Yeah.
there wouldn't have been the rash,
Right,
nothing would ever have been done.
exactly.
So my
A lot of
question
people
is,
get
why are we
rash.
paying millions of dollars to medical specialists that are not diagnosing us with anything, when we can pay $200 to CrowdMD online and they will get our diagnosis for us and we can treat ourselves? I think
Exactly.
it's time for a major paradigm shift in Canada, in North America. It's time to move away from the medical specialist model who are rude, ignorant, arrogant, and killing us,
Yes.
and move to online treating ourselves. It's time to say goodbye to the physicians in this province that are killing us. And I know this because I'm a healthcare leader and I've seen the harm over 4 years, and not just local, I'm talking Regina specialists that are killing people. And I've tried to stop it. My reward for stopping it, for raising it in a very professional, very calm, very methodical way, was in September I got fired. So now my staff are requesting a meeting with the Premier to say, what the hell has happened in the province of Saskatchewan? I practiced 10 years in Alberta. I worked with a high quality team. What the hell has happened in Saskatchewan?
Exactly.
What has happened to your province? Because honest to God, these physicians are killing you people and you don't even know it.
Well, the
If
problem.
I have a problem, I'm in Alberta. I will tell you that right now.
Yeah.
What has happened here?
The problem is if I had the Lyme kit that is done in Canada, done anywhere in Canada, it would have come back negative. That wasn't province specific. That's the test and that's the problem. Until they start testing for all 4 strains in a Western blot and an Alyssa, there's no hope. In 1995, the Germans had published studies saying the Alyssa is absolutely not credible. They should not be using it without the Western blot test to back it up. So in 95, the UK knew this wasn't good. What are we still using? The Alyssa test. The Alyssa test measures your immune system's response to something. I'm sure I'm simplifying it very much for the medical people here, but how it was explained to me was my body never responded. Because they call Lyme the great imitator. It got into my system, it convinced my immune system that I was good to go. My ANA levels were only slightly raised, my white blood cell counts were never off. Every blood test I had was perfectly normal. Everything was fine. So my lymph nodes became so painful I could hardly touch my chest. It was just agony. Oh, they'd swell up at some points. I did have to go and get them ultrasounded, and they told me that they had nothing to compare them to, so they didn't know if it was normal or not. So the fact that it was sticking out of my neck all of a sudden didn't worry anybody. So again, there's that bitterness. Yeah, go ahead.
Did you take the summary of what's happened to you to the disease lab where they test the ticks and things like that, because
There.
there is a test, there is a toxicity test, but you know, that's if you know you got bitten and you actually have a tick. But this theory that we don't have Lyme disease beyond Ontario, so
Exactly.
where is this coming from? And I wondered what their response would be to that, because I think they will test there. Now, you're saying that they won't get all the...
It depends
strains.
which doctor. The Lyme literacy is so poor in this country that if you don't get the right doctor that's seen it before and is willing to go out on a limb for you, if they do suspect it and are brave enough to give you a clinical diagnosis,
What do you mean brave enough?
Well,
if they're not, because Lyme doesn't exist here, they're only allowed to give you a 28-day treatment. So typical treatment, 28 days, absolute maximum is IV antibiotics. Problem with that is if it's in your digestive system, it's not going to get it. And if it has crossed the blood-brain barrier, probably not going to get it. Problem with that is with all the neurological, obviously, they were swimming around in there. There's no way they weren't, right? I've been on since the 16th of May. I'm still not back to even 90% of where I was. And I've got 4 more months to go. 28 days, and it was just a fluke. At the 28-day point, I ran out of my antibiotics. I didn't realize I had to phone and reorder them. I was out for a day and a half, and in that day and a half, my knees started aching again. If that was the end of my treatment, I would now have what they call chronic Lyme, and there's nothing they can do for you. So we not only have to change the test, we have to change the treatment. One without the other isn't going to cut it either. So I did take this to the health minister. We actually, I thought, had a very good meeting. We were scheduled for half an hour. We were there for almost an hour. He is just an old boy from Stoughton, so he was very down to earth. He said, in his opinion, when he asks about Lyme, he gets a canned answer. He said, it's a canned answer every time. We don't have Lyme, we don't need to talk about it. So he said, in his moose are down in Stoughton and in Kipling. When I grew up in Kipling, there's no moose there. Now there's moose. So if moose can travel, why can't a wood tick? They love birds, they like little things. Don't those things move? Apparently they respect the borders and the government doesn't think they travel. So yeah, it doesn't make sense.
Did they declare?
Exactly, probably not.
But this
So-
is not about Lyme, it's about curiosity. You've got someone as ill as you were. I saw you right away. I saw, oh my God, she is so ill. What is going on? Because
Yeah.
I was seeing complex neurological presentations in a situation I was dealing with.
Right.
And I just couldn't believe it. And for someone to say, go to a psychiatrist, that is absolutely beyond ridiculous.
Oh, it's insulting.
I mean,
And
it
they
is-
sent Gary as well.
And across the board, it's not
Yeah.
like an incident. It's chronically
Yeah.
across the board here. It's like
Exactly.
beyond ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like something has happened in this province where you have gotten like the worst of the worst, and it all begins with leadership, because I'm a healthcare leader. It all starts with leadership. So you
Yeah.
have to look to leadership.
See, and that's where...
Physicians are not getting leadership.
Yeah, exactly. This is the part of the talk where we should just take out our tinfoil hats and firmly affix them. There's many different theories as to why and what is going on. One of the theories is the CDC in the States, Center for Disease Control, has come out and said in the past that there are approximately 30,000 cases of Lyme across the states every year. That's it. Not a big deal. 300 million people or whatever there. Good to go. In the last year, they've come out and said, we were probably wrong. We think it's more like 300,000. However, depending on what you read, one of the guys that is big on this on the board of the Center for Disease Control also works for a company that is working on a vaccine for Lyme. They are slowly starting to bring it to market. I have every confidence that once they have a vaccine in place, we'll all have Lyme, because somebody's got to make money on it.
yeah.
And as long as we're only paying $500 for a test, we're not making no money. When I went to the health minister, I broke down what I cost the government as close as I could figure. There was a lot of things I didn't factor in. I know it was a very, very low estimate. And I know that the politicians like dollars and cents, so that's what I did. I added everything up, and it was roughly between our, personally, in the hit that we took financially, the insurance companies, and the health system. This does not include what Darren and Virginia lost. It doesn't include what my kids lost. It was $138,000. is what I cost them. The test cost me $650. If I would have had it in June when I needed it and was first presenting, if I had the right test at that time, I would have saved $138,000. So if we put the right measures in place, we will get the results that we need. And I know I'm just using Lyme, but this is the case for an awful lot of diseases. It's also the case with prevention. Again, they don't want to talk about nutrition. They don't want to talk about vitamins. They don't want to talk about anything alternative, because then you don't know anything. You talk about an essential oil or a Bowen treatment, which is two things that work very well for me. They act like you're going back to the psychiatrist, because nobody, that's alternative. You see it with MS and medicinal marijuana. It's been around since the beginning of time, but because they can't patent it, they can't sell it.
That's right.
And it goes with your food too. This is just another side rant. This is another passion of mine. You know why you don't see many potato commercials on TV? It's because farmers can't afford to put their potato commercials on TV. You know who can? Gerber. They can put things on TV and they can say things like, is your baby a picky eater? Are they not getting the right nutrition? Here, this little slime-filled juice kit can squeeze right into their mouth, and it's full of corn syrup and it's full of crap that we don't know about, massive amounts of sugar. This'll fix them. Gerber can spread that word. The potato farmer hopes you know. They just hope you figured it out. That's a huge disconnect in our culture as well. As long as we continue the diet that we're on, the corn syrup, I don't even mean the genetic modification in a lot of cases. It's the processed and the packaged. It's the advertising that has to change as well. It's the advertising when you see, I'm sure you've all seen the drugs. Oh, here's this brand new drug. Go to your doctor and you can check it out. And then it cuts, and then there's a voice that comes on and says, may cause problems with your bladder, migraines, anal leakage, and any number of things. No one has said that about a potato, you know? So they're the money, they're the push.
Sorry, Dana, isn't one of the problems also, or mainly, that the doctors, because Canada is not recognizing Lyme disease, that the doctors will not treat it, and if the doctors do believe that there is Lyme disease, they are pushed out.
Yep,
And I mean like pushed.
Yep, there's a doctor in BC that was treating with long-term antibiotics and he refused to quit, and they told him, we'll either take your license or you can retire. So he was forced to retire. He now works with the Canadian Lyme Association.
Was
Yeah,
that
so-
Dr. Murray Kami or something?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
But you know, there is a group of specialists who might have picked up on that. They probably would have come from another country, and that's orthopedic surgeons.
Possibly.
Because of the way that symptoms are manifested, and it's certainly been talked about. I've been retired for a while now. These would be our South African doctors.
Right. See, what the neurologist told me after, because I was getting better, and I went back to see him. And I said, like, look, I'm on these antibiotics, look how much better I am. He's like, oh, this is fantastic. And he said, it doesn't matter if a cat is white or black, as long as it catches mice. I thought about that, and I thought, no, it does matter. It does matter what's fixing me. It does matter what treatment I'm going to. This matters. But they can't say that. So he also said something that I know he would never repeat in a million years. He said that the year before, he had been testing for Lyme. He got called from up way above him in the hospital. They called him and they said, those ticks are not here, Lyme is not here, you're wasting our resources, and if you don't have a founded reason that you can come back and prove later, you are not to order that test. So it is more than the doctors. It is higher than the doctors. It's higher than our provincial government, but I can only get so far, so.
But how come we can get a vaccine for our dogs and cats for Lyme disease?
You'll also get
And
treatment.
we don't have it in Canada.
Yep, exactly, and you'll get treatment. They'll give your dog antibiotics,
Yes.
they wouldn't give them to me. You know?
Get to the vet.
Exactly, I should have went to the vet.
They would have given you antibiotics.
No, they
But
wouldn't.
they wouldn't have given it to you long enough. They would
Well-
have only given it to you, no?
No, they still wouldn't give me the antibiotics because I didn't have Lyme. Because nothing was registered in the Canadian system. I did not have Lyme disease. Absolutely no one has it written down in any file in Saskatchewan that I have Lyme disease.
But if they had had the full testing where it tested the 4 strains and that came back positive,
They would have only given me 28 days.
right.
Right. So
And
had,
that would not have cured it,
Right.
because you have to go through the
Exactly.
stages.
and that's why it's the second problem, right? Is it gets to the point where, okay, so now you have it, if they don't treat it properly, there's no point. So one has to come with the other. And so when I did meet with Dustin Duncan, that was I said I had 2 takeaways from the meeting. One was that we have to do better research on this test. We have to start changing this test and getting up with the times, learning what these kits are. Obviously, it's costing us millions of dollars a year. And then we have to start looking at a better treatment. Just to tell you a real scary story, one of my cousin's wives, she lives in Winnipeg, she was diagnosed with MS, I think about 25 years ago, about the same time as me, and it was just a fluke. She went down, I think it was to Seattle, to get treatment. She had tested positive for Lyme. She had been down to the Mayo Clinic years ago. She has done extensive testing. She's traveled a lot. They have spent a lot of money. So she had the Lyme test done, came back positive. For the last 25 years, she's drug her left leg. It was no good to her. She went up and down stairs on her bum. And now, so she's been on as long as I have been. She's been on antibiotics for as long as me, since May. She can now go halfway up her stairs, leading with her bad leg. 25 years she was told she had MS. The problem is that Lyme can also leave the lesions on your brain. So if they see those lesions, they call it MS, it isn't. There has to be a correlation between the amount of MS in Saskatchewan and the fact that we don't have Lyme. Obviously. You know, and when I brought that up to the health minister, again, very receptive. He was very, very common sense, down to earth. He asked very, very good questions. At no point did I feel he was just pushing me off, whatever. He asked if he could contact me again in the future, which I took as a pretty cool thing. Obviously, I have lots to say about it, so I'll talk to anybody. Another one of the tests or the studies that was done, and this one I find very terrifying. Oh, it's getting late. I'll let you guys out of here soon. They've started to play around with how infectious Lyme is. So down in Ontario, they took 7 very brave people, because the idea of this grosses me out. They put patches on their legs with like a Vaseline ring around it, put 7 ticks that had been grown in a laboratory. So they knew the ticks didn't have Lyme. Put 7 ticks on each person, put them in that, bandaged it up tight, and left it for a week. So the ticks then all dug in. The people all had Lyme. At the end of the test, 2 of the ticks had Lyme. So not only can this be passed from tick to person, this can then be passed from person to tick, and then passed to the next person. So it is absolutely ludicrous to think that this is just even a deer tick problem, that it doesn't go to mosquitoes, it doesn't go to blood transfusions. How would you guys like to have my blood right now? I could go and donate tomorrow. I wouldn't. I don't particularly like mine right now either, but I could. They don't test for it. They don't look for it. What then? I really think we're kind of at a pinnacle of what is going to be something very traumatic if we don't start looking at this. We are going to be hitting an epidemic situation. And the more it gets into our young people, into the kids, and the way the doctors looked at me and said, well, are you sure? If they're doing that to a 9-year-old, they're saying, why don't you want to go to school? Don't you like your teacher? And that's how they're treating the kids. It's not okay. That's why we have the papers written up for the health minister. It isn't an official petition. I'm going to send them in, and because there's a lot of really fancy stuff you have to do for an official petition. We're going to send that in, and we're going to see where it takes us. I'm hoping he's true to his word and he does come back. I am being interviewed by CTV on December 5th. They couldn't get me in to promote this event, so they asked if I would still come in and talk about my story. CBC has since contacted me. Apparently now I'm their hook, so they're doing some more research and coming back. So I mean, I'm going to do what I can. What I want everyone's takeaway from here is to be, please get tested, please try. Just because they say no, it's not here, it is. Just and encourage loved ones to try, because you get beat up by the system. And they say, the doctors say, we already tested you for Lyme, why are you bothering? You know, they told that my father-in-law that. They said, why are you wasting this money? It was a stroke, you're wasting your money. He's good now, he's got his antibiotics. They told my cousin's wife, you've got MS, why are you wasting your time? She's got Lyme, she's getting better. Wow, this really is a soapbox, it's awesome. So, please take that away with you. Please take away the fact that they don't know everything.
Can I make a suggestion for
Yeah.
you, Dana? Just, you know that I've got MS,
Mhm.
that's probably told you all that. And I question myself here now too, whether I should get tested.
Mm-hmm.
But nonetheless, you've approached the health minister at this point. Have you talked to the critics on the opposition's portions? Because I mean, we need a push from more than just within the governing body now.
Mm-hmm.
We need a push from the outside to help this along. Because
Right.
what I'm seeing is that everybody's scared to say epidemic.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically what this comes down to.
Yep, exactly.
Because if I'm diagnosed as MS, somebody else is fibromyalgia,
Mm-hmm.
and it all comes down to Lyme, all of a sudden, oh, our doctors are misdiagnosing people. Now
Yeah,
we've got a liability issue here now.
exactly.
So I think we, you know, if you, seeing how you're spearheading this,
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the push behind you, I think that'd be a good place to start also with the opposition, and not only in just this province, I think other provinces need it too.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's when I did write my letter, I understand, I know how kind of politicians think a little bit, and I said that Saskatchewan should step out ahead of the rest of Canada and lead Canada forward in this way, because the reason I hesitated to go to the NDP first was because what I've seen before is when people approach the NDP, they kind of get brushed under the rug. They kind of treat those people after a while like they're eccentric or they're kind of crazy or they're whatever. I wanted to go to Dustin Duncan first. I wanted to meet with him and I wanted him to realize that I was valid, that this had happened. I want to give him time to come back to me, basically because right now the NDP has no power in this province. If anybody's going to change everything going into an election year, I'm hoping it's them. However, if nothing changes, I have no problem calling Cam Roden and seeing what he'll say about it, because then I know there will be a bigger media push. At this point, I'm hoping that I'm going about it the right way. I have absolutely no idea. I've never really done this before, not in this kind of way. So, yeah, it's just trust yourself, trust your gut. Not to sound controversial, but don't trust the system unless you believe it in your heart. Yeah, so what I have here is there are client services with the health region. If you're not getting the help that you need and you're not getting a test in the appropriate amount of time, you can call them. I have their numbers here. I can pass them on to anyone who wants them. They're there to help us through the system. I have heard several times that they do work, that they can bump up a test, they can find test results, they can push things along. So it is one more tool. I wanted people to have a few different ideas when they left as well. My credits for my pictures and stuff, I don't know if I did it right. Nobody charged me with plagiarism. I don't understand the internet all the way. So I wanted to thank Darren and Virginia for filming and Darren for being my IT guy. The Quappel Fire Department loaned us the projector screen. Sue for setting up all of the stuff for the letters that we're signing. Helen and Virginia also sat at the door for us. Kayla came and helped set up tonight. And Jerry for speaking. I was really proud of what she said there. My family threw everything for their unbelievable and amazing support. I can't even imagine where I'd be without it. So thank you all very much for your time. I know time is a precious thing nowadays. Thank you. leave you to your evening. Have a wonderful night. I will hang around and talk to anybody who wants to talk, answer any questions. Does anybody have any questions right now? Oh, sorry.
Dana, we were down in New Brunswick for 10 days in October.
Yeah.
Out of those 10 days, 5 of those days, the papers carried things about Lyme's
Mm-hmm.
and how it's increasing and needing to do more about it. So it's all across the country.
It is, yeah. And Kelly and Michael this morning, they were talking about how they've released wild turkeys into some of the states on the coast there because they eat the wood ticks. So they're trying to fight it with the wild turkeys that eat the ticks.
Don't eat the wild
Quite
turkeys.
catching it with the line. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. So thank you all very much. I will hang around and, like I say, answer any questions anybody has for as late as we need to. And I hope you guys have good luck and good answers. And if anybody comes back positive, if they could let me know, I would very much appreciate that. Thank you guys very much for coming.